Hello, conspiracy players. Welcome to another episode. Today I have back on Ryder Lee to talk about something that he teased in the last episode where we were talking about the UFO stuff. And that is none other than his most recent movie, A Clockwork Shining. And I've talked about it a couple times on this show. So if you haven't watched it, listen to this and then watch it, or vice versa. But it's a killer movie, and Laurel Canyon is one of my favorite topics. uh just Kubrick in general, and then you even threw some other stuff in there, and we're going to get into all of it. So welcome to the show, Ryder. Thanks for coming on once again.
Thanks for having me on, brother. Really appreciate it. And I'm really happy that you enjoyed the movie and you liked it. But yeah, it was a passion project, a lot of work, blood, sweat, and tears, as we were talking about before we started the show, put into the movie. So I hope people, after, or if they haven't already seen it, they go out and support and rent it or buy it on Amazon Prime.
I would recommend buying it because, like I was telling him earlier before we started recording, you're just going to want to watch it again, and even maybe more than twice. So just buy the damn thing. Before we get into a Clockwork Shining, though, I do want to, for a moment, if you don't mind, pick your brain about JFK, because your first movie, JFK X, Solving the Crime of the Century, you and Jay Widener lay out a theory that I think is probably cooler than anyone I've ever seen, and it makes the most sense. And I also have, in the last few years, started swaying into staged events being more common than actual real events, so it made sense to me. That being said, what do you think's going to happen with these JFK file releases that we're chomping at the bit for, just like we were the Epstein files?
Well, here is an article from Vanity Fair. I don't know if you can.
Yeah, yeah.
It's okay. Well, you're on Zoom, so it's a little bit different. More used to StreamYard, where it automatically does the full screen. But this is a Vanity Fair article, and this blew my mind because if you've seen JFKX, you know what the theory is and what Jay Widener basically proposes in there. And this Vanity Fair article came out, I think, November 19th, 2024. Right here is at the
Hey, real quick,
bottom.
before you say what you're going to say, do you want to just lay it out in like a brief summary of what that theory is for those who haven't seen it?
Well, you can watch it for free on Amazon Prime, Amazon Prime Freevee. You can also watch it for free on Tubi as well, and it's on a bunch of other streaming platforms. So you can just Google JFKX, and it'll be one of the first things that pop up. But for people that haven't seen it, we basically theorize that JFK essentially faked his death, and that might sound really outlandish. And that's why I've brought up this Vanity Fair article, because I've shown so many people this Vanity Fair article that are like know a lot about JFK, and they don't even know what to think of this Vanity Fair article that came out. But essentially, Tibbet, Officer J.D. Tibbet, was also assassinated supposedly by Oswald on the day of the JFK assassination, and he looks almost identical to JFK. He looks so identical that they even called him oh shit, this freaking pop up. They even nicknamed him JFK, and that was the whole reason that Oswald was essentially arrested, was for the murder of that police officer. Oswald was never arrested for the assassination of JFK. The public just threw that accusation on him, and then he was murdered, right? And so we basically surmise that because when you watch the Zapruder film, we have the most clear version of the Zapruder film ever made in our movie JFK X. And there's a splice in the movie whenever the limousine goes in behind the freeway sign, there's a cut in the Zapruder film. And whenever it emerges back behind the Stemmons freeway sign, JFK looks like he's putting something on the side of his face. I mean, it's clear as day. No one can argue with this. There's something on the side of JFK's face, especially when you see it in high definition and in clear video quality. There's something bulging from the side of JFK's face, and it appears there whenever he puts his hands up like this, and he looks like he brushes the side of his face. And there's something bulging from the side of his face. 100%. It's not arguable. There's something on the side of JFK's face. And then whenever it goes off, you see like this, and we pointed out perfectly in our film. It's like this metal piece just rolls up the side of his cheek, and it's even reflecting in the sunlight. And it's just rolling up the side of his face, and then it blows off. So this Vanity Fair article is mind blowing because essentially Jackie filmed a fake assassination of JFK 2 months before the supposed real assassination. This article is wild. I would highly recommend anybody to look up this article. I'm not going to read through it all here, but it basically goes into how Jackie staged this fake assassination 2 months before the supposed real assassination, and that she was all into film, and all the Secret Service agents that were there in Dealey Plaza at that time were also a part of this fake assassination that happened 2 months before. So it's like whenever you put two and two together here, it's things aren't adding up, right?
And that came out 4 months ago, that article.
Yes.
What the fuck? Now, so what are they going to say, like, when they're supposed to release these JFK files? Do you think anything's going to come of it, or it's just going to be more carrot and stick?
I mean, I hope so. I think a lot of people are still focused on the multiple shooter theory, but the multiple shooter theory d doesn't even make any sense either, because if there was multiple shooters, that would mean that that would have been happening right behind Zapruder. Like the shots would have had to have been fired right over Zapruder's head from where he's standing in the gazebo area there. He would have
Yeah,
been ducking. He would have heard something. He would have been like moving frantically. But his camera steadily on JFK, the limousine, all the way until the underpass. He's not moving. He's not ducking. And that's the only position that a second shooter could have been in to hit that trajectory on JFK's head. So the second shooter, where he would have to be, doesn't make any sense.
yeah, and it almost seems like the multiple shooter theory is part of the psyop because grassy knoll stuff has been laid out for us in our pop culture for at least the last 30 years. I mean, that would make sense because it's just more conspiracy candy to distract from, I think, is more closely to what you guys have put out in your first movie. So yeah, everybody check that out. And I mean, do you have anything else to say about that before we move on to the main topic?
Just watch JFK X with an open mind. I mean, it's a it sounds wild and outlandish. I mean, that's what some of the detractors and the people that said about whenever the movie just came out. They were like, "Oh, well, this is garbage. There's no way that this could ever happen." And then the Vanity Fair article hits where they're like, JFK filmed at a fake assassination 2 months before the real assassination. So it's shaping up like it's not so crazy, right?
Yeah, and I didn't even know this article existed until it's probably been a week or two. I listened to you on the Occult Rejects with JJ Vance and Nick there, and you guys brought it up. So I kind of hoped that when I prompted you here, you would talk about that because I think everybody needs to read that thing. And if you haven't, in tandem, at least watch the movie too, because I think that, yeah, whatever they put out, who knows? The Epstein thing was a big flop, so we'll
Yeah, a
see.
bunch of it was redacted. So I'm sure that that's the way that a lot of these other documents are going to go to, is a bunch of it's just going to be 100% redacted. I mean, the people that they disclosed in the Epstein documents was like not the clients, but the contact list. So it was like Michael Jackson and a few other people that were people that had already been named before, but the client list was completely redacted. So, and people are trying to put it out there like that the contact list is the client list, and that's not true. The contact list is different than the client list. A contact person is just somebody that you contact. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're a client. Right?
Exactly.
But the client list was 100% redacted because they said that those people are victims. Which, in one sense, I understand in a way, but just release it, bro. Just release the whole thing. Let us see exactly what was going on. But they're obvious. But this is supposed to be one of three dumps, so maybe we'll get something else in the other dumps. Who
The
knows?
the phase thing just reminds me so much of the Twitter files. It's like, why can't we just get a WikiLeaks drop on all of it and then we can read it? Why do we need a filter of alternative media personalities who are all sketchy to begin with to be the ones to filter it to us? So, yeah, I mean, I didn't expect anything, but the Dog and Pony show, it was something else. And I'm not expecting anything big in the other phases. So, we'll see.
I mean, we can have hope. At least he has essentially done what he said that he was going to do. I mean, you know what I mean? He
No
said that he
doubt
was going
about
to
that.
release the files. They're going to be released. So, I mean, can't
Uh,
really complain because I really don't believe that anybody else would have even have brought that up. That would have never even have been a talking point for any other candidate, right? So at least he's sticking to his guns and what he said that he was going to do. He's essentially done.
Ross Ulbricht being free, I I never saw that happening ever. I mean, I was kind of big into that whole thing when it went down. So, yeah, the promises being kept. I'm all about that. Um, but yeah, let's talk about A Clockwork Shining. And I guess I'll just ask you because I know that Jay Widener did his moon landing thing about Kubrick, and you guys briefly touch on that in this movie. Again, go watch that if you haven't. And what is that one called? The Kubrick Code or something like that?
Kubrick's Odyssey. So
Kubrick's
Kubrick's
Odyssey.
Odyssey 1 and 2.
Yeah, I think I was thinking of Jay Dyer or Isaac Weishaupt, one of those guys. But yeah, those movies. And this is kind of like, from what I understand, it's almost like a trilogy now, the way that this has been put out.
Yeah, this one's like a quasi trilogy to that. So the full title, the subtitle is Kubrick's Odyssey 3. So the full title is A Clockwork Shining, A Kubrick's Odyssey 3. So it's kind of like a quasi third installment finishing up those because he was going to originally do a third one, and I think he was going to call it Kubrick the Magician or something like that until I came along and I was like, hey, this is a new theory, and I think that it makes 100% sense. And he was like, cool, let's do it. And there it is. So we kind of made it to wrap up his Kubrick trilogy. So it only made sense to do because he's already done two other movies on Kubrick. So this one's like the third one. So it kind of wraps everything up for him.
And so you brought this MK Ultra type grand scenario to him. This was your baby then.
Yes.
Nice. All right. Well, so then I'll ask you just about Kubrick in general, because I think there's three things you could say. He was a bad guy, he was a tool for disclosure, or he was rogue. And maybe it could be a combination of all three. I mean, do you have like an overall opinion on what you think he was all about? Because he's given us so much, but he also was rubbing shoulders with everybody that we call bad guys.
Well, essentially, you do have to rub shoulders with people that you necessarily don't want to rub shoulders with. That's really how anything works in business, in the movie industry, in politics, and like all of that, right? You essentially have to do that. But I think that we kind of purposefully didn't bring what exactly we thought about Kubrick into the movie because it's kind of up for interpretation, right? I mean, he's dead, he's passed away. Really, the only information that we can get is about people that knew him before or his family, and it's really difficult to gauge exactly what was going on with him. So we kind of took a step back from that and not really commenting so much on what kind of person we thought Kubrick actually was. And I think that honestly serves the movie the best because if we're just speaking directly on Kubrick and we're like, okay, yeah, he's a 100% good guy, because you're gonna have that division, right? Like that. There's a group of people that's gonna think that he was like, God, and then there's going to be the other group of people that are like, oh, well, he was a horrible guy. He treated everyone badly. He was harassing people on set and doing 100 different takes on any given scene, which is fact.
Hmm.
He was definitely doing that, but he was a perfectionist, right? He was a filmmaker. He was an artist, and he wanted to bring that realistic nature to his movies. And I think we just trying to stay away from that because it was like it's exactly like what we were talking about with Trump. Like there's going to be a section of people that hate him no matter what, and then there's going to be people that look at him like a god. And I don't think either one of those are correct. So I think it lies somewhere in the middle, and I think he can teeter back and forth on it.
Yeah, and I mean, this thing that just popped into my head was the B-52 bomber, where he was contacted because he made it too accurate. And you got into that a lot on I heard you on Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis, and he kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit. So even more so than it was in the movie. But I want to know, like, when he, and this is speculation probably, but like, when was he brought to the attention to these bigger people? Because it seems like just with Doctor Strangelove, 2001 Space Odyssey, and you mentioned that he had a whole list of people that he, was acknowledging at the end of Space Odyssey. And it's basically just different factions of the Department of Defense. And I mean, we talk about Operation Mockingbird quite a bit on this show. So just the fact that they're still doing it to this day. But yeah, even back then, I don't think anybody had any idea that that kind of stuff was going on with military personnel and the overlap with Hollywood. But one thing you brought up that I thought was kind of interesting and I hadn't heard before is Kubrick did not want to make The Shining. And it was almost like they handed it to him after he flopped with what was the movie
Barry
he flopped?
Lyndon.
Yes. So I just kind of find it fascinating that it is one of his most popular movies by far. I think it's right up there with his best. And the fact that he didn't want to do it and he ended up doing what he did with it and how it worked out so well and what you think this overall message he's trying to give to us. It's just like a happy accident, basically.
Yeah, that makes the most sense to me. And with Doctor Strangelove, I think that is where it started, like this relationship with the intelligence community and the Air Force and the military, because it was like you were saying, no one really knew that since the inception of movies. That's why we have the big Laurel Canyon section in the documentary because it shows that the military was involved in Hollywood and that the military was essentially making all of these movies, like thousands of movies that nobody knows exactly what they were because they're still classified to this very day, like tens of thousands of movies. All the footage that we show when we're talking about Laurel Canyon is all real footage. That's
Hmm.
all real footage from Lookout Mountain Air Force Base. Like whenever they're grabbing those big barrels of like movie reels, all that's real footage from Lookout Mountain.
Yeah, and
And
you had to have like such high level of security clearance to even step foot there.
so it makes sense when Kubrick got this help from making 2001 and he was thinking all the intelligence communities, Langley, Virginia, Air Force intelligence, a lot of government contractors were all in the ending credits to 2001: A Space Odyssey, and someone had to have seen that, and they were like, "Oh, you can't have that in there." We can't let people know that there's this collaboration, regardless of like what it is, regardless if it's something nefarious or if it's not anything nefarious. I mean, they could have just been, giving him uh, things to model the stuff after. Who knows exactly, what it was, but obviously it seems like it's a lot more because 2001: A Space Odyssey was using special effects like Jay Weidner talks about with the front screen projection that had never been done before. So how was he getting all of this really hyper advanced technology to be able to a lot of people say that they were NASA cameras that he was using that had a special lens on them, and like a special modified lens that he shot with. And it seems like someone's seen those credits where he thanked all the people and were like, yeah, you got to take that out. Because we also show documents within the movie of, intelligence community's involvement with films that have come out, since then, like the Transformers movie. That was all got through FOIA requests. Like people sending for FOIA requests, and it would come back and be like, yeah, the military and the CIA, Tomorrow Never Dies, some of the James Bond films, had collaborations with the intelligence community and the military. So, if you didn't already know about that, it's still important to see in a movie. And for the people that didn't know about it, I'm sure that they were, kind of shocked about it because, that's a really important thing. And they definitely wanted to take that out and, make that a reveal for later on in the future when people really don't care about it anymore. Because that's another thing about these types of documents and things that are, coming out is normally they don't. I mean, the JFK files has been a really long time, since it happened for them to be released. But the Epstein files are different. When did that was like 2016, 17, right in that area. And that's one that's really recent that which is surprising that they're even going to release because it's normally they wait a really long time in between the event happening and then them releasing any kind of real information about it. So by the time that it's released, people no longer care.
Yeah, and all the people that are responsible are probably fucking long dead.
Exactly. So, and I think the 2020 files, right, won't be released until like 2060 or something like that. They already put a date on those, but they should release the freaking 9/11 files. Why not release the 9/11 files? Bring those out. It's been what, 24 years? Like, release the freaking 9/11 files.
That'd be
Let's
nice.
find out about Building 7, bro. We all need to know about Building 7.
Yeah. And I just wanted to throw in there anybody who's a fan of the Marvel movies, Disney is the Pentagon slash CIA. And the Pentagon, and you can find these in documents like what he's talking about here, they put hundreds of millions of dollars into the Iron Man franchise alone, which gave Elon Musk a little cameo in the second one, Tony Stark himself. But yeah, let's get into The Shining because the first thing that you brought up that kind of opens this MK Ultra theory is she's reading Catcher in the Rye at the kitchen table before they even go up to the hotel. And Catcher in the Rye, I think you mentioned this in it might have been on the Occult Rejects, and I never even thought of this. Like at the time that that movie was filmed, those assassinations hadn't even happened yet with John Lennon and Reagan.
Yeah, Mark David Chapman and John Hinckley Jr. And then there was another one that was brought to my attention by William Ramsey. I had him on my show recently, and there was another one that happened that involved Catcher in the Rye, which I think he said early 80s or somewhere around in there. I'm not 100% sure on the time, but her name was Rebecca Schaefer, and it happened in Hollywood, and Catcher in the Rye was involved in that murder slash assassination as well. So there was three, but yes, Catcher in the Rye, he had it. Wendy is reading it in the very beginning of The Shining. Kubrick had it in there, and the movie was released a year before the two assassinations, which happened almost back to back, which was you just mentioned John Lennon and the attempted assassination on Ronald Reagan. And how did Kubrick know to have that book in there and have Wendy reading it? And then when you think about it, you're like, oh my God, this book has been involved with the two major assassinations that everyone knows about, but a third one with Rebecca Schaefer, and people have theorized that this book is some sort of MK Ultra Manchurian Candidate style trigger for these assassinations. And what is Jack doing throughout the entire Shining movie? He's attempting to kill his family, he's attempting to kill Danny and kill Wendy, right? So when you put that together, you're like, holy shit, this is what it seems like. And then you see how he is being, made to write the same sentence over and over and over and over again, which is exactly like Sirhan did whenever he supposedly assassinated RFK. He's writing
Yes.
the same thing over and over. RFK must die. RFK must die, which is psychic driving, which was created by Hugh and Cameron in Canada, which was to implant certain thoughts and ideas to change the person's behavior on things that they normally wouldn't do, right? And that's a real MK Ultra technique, and we have the real life evidence of that with Sirhan. And Jack is essentially doing the exact same thing that Sirhan was doing, just in his own way. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy.
Yeah.
It's the exact same type of programming. And then when Wendy comes in and realizes that he's not writing a novel, he's just writing the same phrase over and over and over again, he then becomes triggered, and then he tries to essentially kill Wendy.
Yeah.
It goes from Danny to Wendy. So first off, it's Danny. Whenever Grady is talking to Jack in the bathroom, the focus is on Danny. He's like, the boy is a problem. You need to correct him, sir. Like I corrected my two daughters, and the focus is on Danny. So then it's not on Wendy. But then when Wendy comes in and essentially triggers Jack by finding out that he's not writing the novel, right? Then the focus is on her. And then when Grady is then talking to him outside of the door in the storage room, it shifts focus from Danny to now Wendy. And Grady says that Wendy is stronger than they had thought. Those aren't the exact words, but it's essentially like Wendy is, stronger than we had thought. And what he means by that is that she's stronger mentally. She's obviously not strong physically. She's, a super skinny woman. So she's stronger mentally in her head. She's harder to crack. She's harder to break down. She's harder to mind fracture than Jack was, because Jack had already, gone through trauma. He was already an alcoholic, right? And Danny had already been through the trauma as well, with Jack coming in and essentially abusing Danny when he came home and his papers were all over the floor or whatever. And he yanked Danny up by his arm and broke his arm. Well, injured his arm is what Wendy said. And then that's when Danny started receiving his abilities.
Yeah.
That's
Having
all
the
from the movie. That's what the doctor talks to Wendy about in the beginning of the movie. So Jack has already been traumatized. Danny has already been traumatized. That means that they are way more susceptible to MK Ultra style mind control programming, but Wendy isn't. Wendy hasn't had the trauma yet. So whenever Jack comes in and tries to, break down the door with the axe to get her, she's starting to get it because that's the traumatic event, right? And then whenever she goes downstairs, and whenever Jack goes after, whenever he hears Halloran pulling up in the snowmobile, the snowcat, he goes downstairs, and Halloran comes through the door, and then he comes through and hits Halloran in the chest with the axe, kills him. Then he goes after Danny downstairs then they go outside into the maze. And the maze is a maze of the mind. I hope I'm not losing people here too much. I'm
no,
kind of just
no.
going on and on.
That's
So
good.
he goes out, and the maze is a metaphor for the mind. So, and then Danny has to retrace his steps in the maze in his mind to escape Jack. And then Jack is lost in the maze because he's like catatonic. He's succumbed to the 100% MK Ultra style programming. But Wendy, whenever she comes downstairs and she sees Halloran dead on the ground, that's another really traumatic event. And then after she sees Halloran dead on the ground, which one, she's not expecting Halloran to even be there. Two, he's dead, very traumatic, and she had just been tried to be killed with an axe by Jack. So after she comes downstairs, all that stuff happens to her. She sees Halloran dead on the ground. That's when she starts experiencing her what the audience is led to believe as hallucinations. She sees the skeletons in the room. She turns around and sees the guy with his head split that's holding the glass. It's a great party, isn't it? Right? That's the symbolization because he has a streak of blood coming down the center of his forehead. That's symbolically referencing the mind split, the mind fracture. And she's starting to succumb to the MK Ultra style mind control programming. She didn't experience any of this stuff throughout the entire movie until she was traumatized by Jack.
Yeah, and you pointed out too that Jack and Danny hallucinate after entering room 237. So you want to talk about that a little bit? Because I found that whole theory to be, I mean, you can look up the MK Ultra disclosure files for yourself to see the kind of stuff they were doing.
Yeah, so Jack is he goes into meet with Lloyd the bartender. We 100% believe that Lloyd is a real person. We believe that all the people in the hotel are real people. They're they're actors that are there like playing a role play. They're essentially there playing a LARP. They're LARPing. It's like Shutter Island, right? Have you seen the
Mm-hmm.
movie Shutter Island with
Yep.
Leonardo DiCaprio? Where essentially the entire freaking psychiatric facility, all the workers and everything are LARPing their positions at the end of the movie. They're actors playing actors in an acting movie. So that's essentially what all the people at the Overlook are. They're actors, they're not ghosts. They're actors there to play a role to essentially see what they can get Jack to do to his family. It's an experiment. It's a giant experiment. So Jack walks into the gold room, meets Lloyd. Lloyd gives him an alcoholic drink. It has been well known that the CIA has spiked alcoholic drinks with some form of hallucinogenic. This has happened time and time again. Even an LSD aerosol has been sprayed. There's documentation on all this. You can get on and look at the MK Ultra files or look up stories
Yeah,
about
Operation Midnight Climax. They were trying the aerosolation and kind of ended up going with the drinks because it was easier to control.
yep. And so Lloyd gives Jack his first drink of alcohol. Then Wendy comes in, and Wendy is like, Danny was attacked by a woman in one of the upstairs bedrooms. So he goes up there. Then he encounters the woman. And then later on, whenever he goes up to the apartment that they're staying at, Wendy asked him, she's like, did you see anything? It's like, I didn't see a goddamn thing up there. Which is synonymous with that you've essentially been drugged, right? Like if you experience something that's not there, like the only thing that you can think of is like, oh well, you've been drugged. So it's a combination of drugs and like actors, and then also with the aerosol, it's very apparent it's either an aerosol that's in room 237, an LSD drug aerosol that's in there, because when Danny goes in, that's how he could have experienced that as well. So they sprayed the aerosol on Danny, and then they had Jack drink the laced alcohol with LSD, and that's how he experienced it.
And to just backtrack a little bit to just lend more credence to what you're saying, when they're having the meeting at the beginning talking about him going up there, they keep mentioning our people in Denver. And you have some theories about what that could mean.
Yeah, that's something that I really found odd when I was watching it several times. I was like, why do they keep mentioning these people in Denver, right? They're over and over again. It was at least we put a compilation of it in the movie, and I'm pretty sure it's at least 5 or 6 times. Either Jack or Allman mentions our people in Denver.
Another JFK connection there.
Well, yeah, which Allman looks strikingly similar to JFK. He's even got the American flag thing on his desk, and Bill Watson, which we didn't really get into it in the movie a lot because it was difficult to find photos of Sidney Gottlieb, but we're essentially relating Bill Watson as the main person behind the entire operation. He's the silent partner, right? He's actually the main guy. The front is that it's Allman, but it's really Bill Watson that's running the whole shindig. Right. You know how that's happened sometimes. Like you'll get that front person, but the person that's really behind that person is the one that actually makes all the real decisions and is in charge of the operation.
Yeah.
That's how what's going on here. And we didn't really bring it up within the movie because it was difficult to relate Bill Watson to Sidney Gottlieb just because there's very few photos that you can find of Sidney Gottlieb. So, but they do resemble each other in the way that they dress and the way that they look, and even their facial structure looks very similar to each other.
I got my hand on a paperback several years ago. It's called Poisoner in Chief, and it's about Gottlieb. And I'm trying to remember if you know, most paperbacks have the little thin section of like us glossy printed photos in the middle. I don't remember if that one did or not. But yeah, I haven't heard that. I'm looking into that one as soon as we get off here because that's interesting. So yeah, the people in Denver, and you've mentioned how Denver is kind of maybe a hub for intelligence because it's in the center of the country, and they're just overseeing this project up in the mountains. And yeah, you don't think this is the first time this has gone on, right? This is like Jack might be whatever number in a series of experiments they're doing up there.
Yes, that's what I believe that the end scene of The Shining is depicting. It's not depicting anything like reincarnation. When it pans down, it says July 4th, 1921. It doesn't have anything to do with reincarnation or spiritual things. It's a date marker for how long they've been running some sort of operation up there at the Overlook Hotel. They do it every year, and they get different kinds of scenarios every single year. And when you think about it, it's like the perfect place, right? Because no one's up there. It's the middle of the winter. It snows a lot up there. You get snowed into the hotel. It's honestly a perfect location to run some sort of operation up there, some sort of experiment, some sort of mind control type of scenario. And they do it every single year, and that's what makes the most sense to me. And some of the experiments work out, some of them don't, some of them go awry. Like for sure, the Grady one went awry, but I think that kind of like became the goal. It became the goal to see if they can actually get the person that they're experimenting on to kill people, to murder people.
Especially if you would murder your own family, who wouldn't you murder?
Exactly, and then shown the original ending of The Shining. It really makes all the sense in the world because Allman comes into the hospital when Wendy is there. Danny is there as well. Allman comes in, talks to Wendy, and is like, "Everything that you said to the police and the staff here at the hospital, we can't find any evidence of. There's no evidence of anything that you said." So that means that they essentially went in and cleaned up the entire operation. Or like, get rid of Jack's body, get rid of Halloran, get rid of the weapons. But it can double as somebody that's looking at it on like the surface level, on the main level, as that it was just ghosts. You
Yeah,
know,
because you've pointed out before that essentially Kubrick made this a psychological thriller. He didn't really have paranormal stuff in there, but yeah, if you just look at the bar scene, like, oh, those are ghosts, or the hallucinations in room 237, is like ghosts or possession, but it's not your typical paranormal movie, and it's not like the book in that way at all.
It's not, and that I 100% believe that that is why Kubrick made it that way because he's trying to tell you an underlying story. He's trying to tell you a history of these types of operations and these types of programs, and that it involves MK Ultra and mind control, right? Because anything that seems to be on the surface level being paranormal can also be real, like real physical people.
Yeah.
There's nothing other than when the woman turns from a very hot, attractive woman into an elderly lady, which that can be explained by Jack being drugged. Everything else can be real physical people. So he's kind of coded it in there as it can go either way. So if you're just looking at it on the surface level of it, then okay, it's all just, it's just paranormal. Lloyd, the bartender, is a ghost, but somehow has alcohol and is like a physical thing and is able to move things around. All the people that were in the party in the gold room are somehow ghosts too. But that doesn't make any sense because they all look super real. Grady bumps into Jack with the tray and hits him and then has a full blown on conversation. And Grady doesn't ever admit that he's a ghost, right? He says, "Oh well, I don't recall, sir." Yeah, so whenever Jack is like, weren't you the caretaker here?" Which is another really strange thing within The Shining. He goes by two different names, Delbert Grady and Charles Grady. So Ullman calls him Charles Grady, and then he refers to himself while talking to Jack as Delbert Grady. So there's two different names in there, but he never once implies to Jack that he's a ghost or that he's paranormal. He's like, "Oh well, I don't recall, sir." You know, so all the things that seem to be paranormal make more sense if they're real people, if they're LARPing the entire thing. That's how Jack gets let out of the storage room. It's not a
Right.
ghost. It's Grady outside of the storage room that unlocks it.
Yeah.
Ullman was the one that rolled the ball toward Danny
Okay.
because at the end of the movie, in their original ending, the Stanley Kubrick had in there that he cut out after the test screenings. Ullman, whenever he goes in to talk to Wendy and says that nothing that she had said had ever happened there, he also throws the tennis ball that Jack was bouncing off of the wall before he goes and looks at the model of the maze, and also is the tennis ball that inconspicuously rolled toward Danny to make him go into room 237.
Right.
So how did he know about the tennis ball?
That's a good point. Did you talk about that in the movie? About him rolling him the ball?
Yes, we did. And
Okay.
whenever we were showing the footage from the pictures and the script from the original ending.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah, I
Trying
mentioned that Ullman hands the tennis ball to Danny, which is the exact same tennis ball that Jack was bouncing off of the wall, and is also the same tennis ball that rolls toward Danny.
All right. Well, I want to talk about Jack Nicholson a little bit because uh my girlfriend does a podcast and she's into like Dave McGowan a lot, and not just the Laurel Canyon stuff, but the Program to Kill shit with you can get into Ted Bundy. But we kind of stumbled upon something, and I kind of started thinking in a weird outside the box way because Jack Nicholson and Ted Bundy, they almost have the same exact story as far as, do you know about Jack Nicholson? He's basically undocumented. There's no birth certificate. And
Yeah.
his mother, who he thought was his mother, or is his grandma, and his mom is his sister. Same thing with Ted Bundy. But there's some stuff in The Shining with the yellow beetle, and he replaced the red beetle, as you pointed out. But it was almost like a Ted Bundy thing where I just think there's so many parallels between him. And then we watched this interview footage of Ted Bundy, and I think it was when he was in All Places, Colorado. And I swear to God, that was Jack Nicholson. It looked like him, it sounded like him. And Ted Bundy was like a chameleon because he never looked the same. There's witness testimony of, yeah, he looked like a different person every time I saw him. And it's almost like Ted Bundy was an operation. And I got to think that Jack Nicholson was a part of it somehow after I saw that. I'll have to send you the video because it just seems like Jack Nicholson wearing a little bit of makeup or a prosthetic face or something. And I don't know. It's just
That,
something I wanted to throw at you since we're talking about Jack and The Shining.
that's really interesting. Definitely send me the video. I'd like to check that out.
Yeah, I will, because the voice and the eyebrows and the smile, the mannerisms, it's just, I don't know. Maybe Ted Bundy was never really one person and is just like another type of operation. So do you think that Kubrick was privy to this kind of shit going on and he was trying to disclose it to us, or do you think it was just like a theory he might have had?
He definitely had to be privy to it because just based on the fact that he made a Clockwork Orange in 1970, right? I mean, he had to have known that that was going on in some kind of way. I don't think that he could just bring a Clockwork Orange out of his imagination because
Right.
it's very similar to what they were really doing.
Yeah, and it's also based on a book, and he took a lot of fucking liberties like he did with The Shining. And I mean, I tried to read the book. I think I might have got about halfway through it. It's just so hard to read. Have you read it?
I have not read the book,
It's
no.
hard, man. If you can get through it, let me know because it's just it's almost like another language. Like, the language they speak in the movie. The book's written like that.
Yeah.
So you kind of almost got to like learn to code the way it's written. So, what about Eyes Wide Shut? What's your take on that whole thing?
Well, it's a really interesting one, and there's a lot of theories and speculation on that one as well. The people have theorized that there was 20 minutes of the movie that were cut out of the end when he showed it to Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers asked him to cut some scenes out of the movie. He didn't want to do it, and then turns up dead of a heart attack. But we don't really have any. I think the only people that would know would be the executives at Warner Brothers and the main actors that were in the movie. Because I'm pretty sure that he invited the main actors to view the movie. And so, of course, Nicole Kidman, Tom Cruise, they would have had to have seen it. So they would be the only ones that would be able to verify if there was something different from Kubrick's original cut and what everybody else saw.
Yeah, I was listening to it was a Joe Rogan episode probably a few months back where Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avery that helped him write the stories for Pulp Fiction. Roger Avery said that he's 100% sure, and I mean he knows a lot of these people in Hollywood that we didn't get the cut Kubrick wanted to put out. And usually when I hear people say that, it's like they're guessing, but he sounded really sure about it. And I mean, I got to lean that way myself if gun to head had to take a guess. But do you know who Sean McCann from Wake the Dead is?
No, I don't.
So he's got this theory, you should look into it, where he plays the movie against itself. So uh, he just starts the movie like normal, and then he has a time code where he starts it again. And the movie almost talks to itself and answers questions. And he's convinced that he's stumbled upon a code that Kubrick intentionally put out there. And I mean, it's compelling. I would definitely check it out if I was you. And I know he went on William Ramsey and talked about it. If that might be a good place to look at it. But now he's doing all sorts of things where he plays Eyes Wide Shut, starts The Shining, and there's just this whole. I mean, this guy's got a lot of time on his hands, and it's kind of like when you used to like start Dark Side of the Moon with Wizard of Oz kind of thing. But
Yeah, you can also do that with The Shining. You can play it forwards and backwards at the same time.
really, have you done that?
I've never personally done it, but I've seen it done
And it.
online, and pretty much everything like lines up. And that's what they say about like perfection, right?
Hmm.
When something is perfect, you can do it both ways, right? You can watch it forwards, you can watch it backwards, and it still creates the same story.
Are you a David Lynch fan?
I do like David Lynch, yes.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the way he hired that little dude to do the lines backwards, and then he would play him. The guy talks backwards, so that when you play it backwards, he's talking normally, and it's just like he said it wasn't even that hard to do. He's like, when you're starting something back to finish, it should make as much sense. I don't know, but yeah,
I mean,
David
that's the
Lynch.
martial arts, like the masters will tell you that whenever you're performing like Taekwondo in Korea, they call it forms, but in karate, they call it katas. Uh, you become a master when you can perform those forms or those katas in reverse. So you learn the form or kata frontwards, and then but you really learn it when you can do it backwards.
So Laurel Canyon, that's probably my favorite topic, and you got a guy in there. Man, his I wanted to remember his name. It's
Mark
kind of
Devlin.
yes, that he's like a British dude, right? And man, what a find that was, and to get his input on all that stuff, because all we really have is McGowan and people who have kind of taken his research and ran with it. But it seems to me that the fact that you could put Laurel Canyon and the Beatles and all of this, and it all ties to The Shining, it intrigues me because the more research we do, and you see that it's pretty much all connected. I mean, I was stoked when you said you were going to put Laurel Canyon stuff in this movie, and I was like trying to figure out how it would work out, but it really flows into it just as well as all the Kubrick stuff.
Yeah, the Laurel Canyon section was very important because Kubrick lived in LA for a couple of years too. So, and I'm pretty sure that everybody during that time was at least aware that the military had a freaking movie studio on top of Laurel Canyon. I mean, several actors had top-ranking security clearance for it. Ronald Reagan had it, Marilyn Monroe, Cary Grant, James Stewart, and the list goes on and on and on and on.
Disney.
Yep. Uh, Walt Disney had the clearance there as well. So it's like exactly what were they doing up there? But we do know that that's where the nuclear testing footage was done, and all the nuclear testing footage was done on miniature sets.
Yeah, because the
And
official story is that they developed the test footage there. It's like, no, you shot it there. I
the,
mean,
yeah, you can't explode a supposed nuclear bomb and the camera still survive, bro.
yeah.
Give me a break, dude. Not gonna happen. You're telling me that a big, giant, bulky camera, because that's what they were back then, right? They were the big freaking shoulder cameras that you had to look through a freaking viewfinder to know exactly what you're shooting, which makes zero sense for the moon landing footage. You're telling me that they brought a giant freaking video camera up on a space shuttle and went to the moon and was able to look through the viewfinder to get a good shot through a spacesuit, through a space helmet. They were able to know exactly what they were filming.
Yeah, and who
I don't know
set
if you've ever messed around with one of those old cameras before.
I've held one. I've never used one.
They are old, they are bulky, and they are inconvenient.
Yeah, and most
They're
of them were hand crank too. like especially in the 40s.
Probably the smallest sized one. I don't even have anything for reference. I guess this Egyptian photograph here would probably be the smallest type of camera that they could possibly have. So it would have a lens here, and you would be holding it like this in order to film, like up on your shoulder, because it's heavy. And the viewfinder would like be here, so it would have to be out like this. You wouldn't be able to be looking through a viewfinder with a giant freaking spacesuit on. You'd have no idea what you were shooting. It would be all like this. You'd be like, you wouldn't have any idea. You couldn't keep it still because it's so heavy.
What about, I'll just ask, do you think that nuclear bombs even exist?
Oh man, you had to bring that question up.
Well, I don't. So if you don't, if you want to not feel embarrassed, if you feel that way too, but I'm not afraid to say it anymore. I just think there's enough evidence that they faked. I mean, they did firebomb the fuck out of Japan, sure, but they also did that in Vietnam. It wasn't nukes there.
I honestly don't know. I haven't done enough research into it. It's not really something that interests me to the point that I would like need to look into it that heavily. But I do know about the one, what was the one guy that he did like an experiment with nuclear radiation or something where he went and like touched it or like ate it or something. I don't know what he did, but it turned out to be okay. I don't know. I don't really have an opinion on it, and I don't think that it really even matters that much if like they're not or if they are. I don't think that it changes our reality at all. Like I'm still gonna have to wake up and do my normal shit every day and go to the grocery store and do everything that I gotta do. You know, it doesn't really make a difference to me if they're real or if they're not real. I mean, and we might find out, dude. I
Well,
don't
that's
know. We
that's
might find out.
that's part of the reason I think that they're not is because they've only been used twice in a 3 day period. All these world leaders that supposedly have them, I just can't imagine that wouldn't have been used since. I do think they might fake it, a Project Nuke Beam kind of thing, because there's an awful lot of talk of nukes as a result of like certain world political things going on right now. But yeah, I just was curious, and that
Well, I
was a
mean,
good
if you think
answer.
about it, like they could be. I don't know. I mean, the reason that they wouldn't do it again is because if they are real, they cause way too much destruction. They wreck too much stuff, right? And you don't want to go in and completely destroy an entire freaking country.
Right.
That's not conducive to uh, anybody. That doesn't help anybody. You want to go in and you want to take it over while everything is still standing because
Exactly.
you want to use everything that's already there. So it makes sense that they would have done it during World War II if they are real, dropped them. So then people would be like, "Oh shit, we gotta, you just wrecked everything. We got to take a step back and not mess with this anymore." And that's probably a big reason why again, if they are real, that they're never used again because it causes too much destruction. And then if you throw in the alien narrative, right, the extraterrestrial narrative. So whenever we dropped the nukes, the ETs came down and was like, "Oh well, we got to disarm all these nukes. We can't have all the people of the world having the access to all these nukes. They'll blow each other up. And you guys down there on Earth are a whole giant experiment down there. We use your souls to power our ships, and we chop off your nut sacks and use it for fuel for our UFOs. You can't all be killing each other with these nukes." I mean, that's been a common theory for a really long time. That's what they all love to talk about. Like all the whistleblowers that don't say jack shit about anything, go up there. They're in our nuclear test sites. They're shutting down our nukes. They have the ability to turn on and off our nukes, and they got the ability to do that. They can probably launch it. This is national security risk.
Yeah, and I also got to think that if I was gonna think they're real, just the chain reaction it would set off of the mutually assured destruction kind of thing, where if one drops, yeah, we're just gonna, it's just gonna be everybody shooting everybody with them if it just ever happened. I mean, the Cold War, where it was like we were this close many times, and for whatever reason they decided not to do it. But anyway, we're kind of getting off there on a tangent, but yeah, just the Laurel Canyon thing with the Lookout Mountain Air Force Base, how you kind of shown like maybe Kubrick was kind of wanting us to look over there because he made the Overlook look quite a bit like it.
Yeah, he really did, and a very similar name as well. The Overlook, Lookout, they very similar. And then Lookout Mountain Air Force Base also had a hotel that sat on the exact, excuse me, location of where the Air Force Base came in and was built. And that hotel burnt to the ground. Now, at the end of Stephen King's book, The Shining, the hotel burns to the ground. Didn't happen in Stanley Kubrick's rendition of the movie, but in the sequel, Doctor Sleep, the hotel burns to the ground. So they
That's
finally
right.
pay that off. I don't know if that might just be a coincidence, but a very strange coincidence at that.
That I actually never read the book. I did see the movie, and it would be weird if it's in the book because then it would have burned down twice. But I kind of want to know now. But yeah, you have anything else you want to say about your movie or the just anything in general we've talked about?
Just please support the movie. If you haven't seen it yet, please go out there, give it a watch. If you don't want to, I would recommend buying it because you're gonna want. There's so much information in there. It's like packed all tightly in there. Some people that's watched it, they're like, man, I don't even have any room to breathe on this freaking thing. It's just like constantly hitting you. But it's a long movie. It's almost 2 hours long. So, and that's a shortened version of what we could have made it. Could have been way longer than that. It could have roughly have been like 3 hours long, but that would have just been a total freaking nightmare for me to edit and put together an entire 3 hour long movie. The almost 2 hour long one was enough for me. So please go out there, support it. And if you're listening and you want to watch it and you're not in the United States or in the UK, you can watch it on Vimeo as well. You can rent it or buy it on Vimeo. So if you're in Canada, Australia, any other country that you may live in, Mexico, wherever, you can watch it on Vimeo. And thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. It was a fun chat, and I'm really happy that you watched it, and I'm really happy you enjoyed it. And it's important to support independent filmmakers. This was a 100% independent film, and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into making it. So please tell your friends, share it in the Facebook group, share this video, support this man, support this channel, hit the thumbs up or leave a comment. It helps out. Repost it, share it in Facebook groups, Instagram. This is how we defeat this gigantic industry that has been created just for the special people.
And your show as well. What is it? Is it Raised by Giants?
Yes, Raised by Giants on YouTube and any and all podcast platforms.
All right, man. Well, it's been a pleasure as always. I hope you're going to take a little break, but I do look forward to whatever you take on next. You're a young guy. You've already got some masterpieces under your belt, and I'm sure they're just going to get better. I will email you or send you a thing on X, that little snippet of Ted Bundy, and you can let me know what you think. But all right, brother, have a glorious rest of this Tuesday, March the 4th. I didn't even know it was March 4th. All right, buddy. Until next time, be well, everybody.
to call